Technology. Yay, we are live. So
Yay!
excited. So if you've been following along, everybody, I've been doing these daily lives on my own, and quite frankly, was getting pretty lonely and bored of listening to myself speak. And so, in thinking about our mission of helping women earn more and live better, of course, ladies get paid as a destination for that, but there are so many other fantastic folks out there who also share that mission and who are approaching it in different ways. So, starting yesterday, we had Tess Waresmith on, who helps women with investing. But today, we've got Cynthia Orduña, who is an amazing coach. Her specialty, I mean, she'll tell you more, but her specialty is taking effectively multi-passionate people and helping them craft a career where they don't feel like they need to compromise, I would say. And just before we dive right into Cynthia's story and how she helps women, and if you are somebody who, does consider yourself kind of a Jill of all trades and has a lot of different areas of interest in trying to figure out how to focus, what I'm hoping today we can give you tangible tools for how to start approaching your career in that way. But before we do that, Claire Wasserman here. I should always introduce myself. I tend to forget that. I'm the founder and author of Ladies Get Paid. For those who don't know, we are an educational platform, global community, and a book that helps women level up professionally and financially. Cynthia, I'm so honored that you are our second guest in our new lives that we are doing. And I appreciate you being here. And I would love for you to tell us a little bit about how you got your start as a coach and why this area, to not to use the word passion so many times, but why are you so passionate about helping multi-passionate women craft a career of their dreams?
Yeah, so I'm so honored to be here. So thank you so much just for having me. So my background is actually in art and multimedia. And so what I learned how to do so many years ago is really try different types of techniques, different types of modalities. And as an artist or as a creative, you're essentially taught how to continue to try, test, experiment, fail, and then create a combination of whatever you think is most interesting, right? And start creating where it's innovative artist brands, or you can create innovative pieces, but it's a constant, empowerment of trial and error and expressing whatever it is that you're interested in. So what I realized a few years back when I started recruiting was that many people outside of the creative field typically weren't taught how to do that, especially if you were, educated in business or took a different route. And so as I was recruiting and I was realizing that all of these people, had so many interests but weren't able to articulate it or felt like they were being boxed in, that's when I really started coaching, and I wanted to offer more support to people and really help and guidance in figuring out what is it that you want to do? How can we explore all of these passions that you have? How can we mold that into a unique career for yourself? Something that's fun, something that's not stale. And so I actually ended up really utilizing art techniques and mindsets and approaching that in my coaching practice. And so that's how I help people just, brainstorm and generate ideas and figure out what it is that we want to do next in that career, and also understanding that you're going to pivot at any time. You're constantly evolving. So what does that mean as you continue to change and evolve, right? How does your career change and evolve? What does it look like? How do you want to continue to recreate and reinvent yourself? So that's really where the passion started. I guess because I started out as an artist, nobody could really box me in to begin with. And then once I, went into corporate, I was like, there's a different way to do this. And I wanted to support people in doing that.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to just take us on a journey of somebody who might approach you. If you even want to use a real client or previous client, if I come to you, what's the kind of situation that person's often in, and what would be the first steps that you might take with them to get them to both understand themselves and their path, and then that next step of telling the story?
Mm-hmm. So what I've actually realized, it's really interesting with people that are multi-passionate. You go through almost 3 phases. So typically you're starting off in 9 to 5 because that's what society tells you that you have to start off in. And they find themselves confused on what they want to do, constantly maybe asking people for, referrals to 3 to 5 different types of jobs because they're open to it all. They want to try it all, so they don't want to limit themselves. And then that's coming off as flaky and unfocused, right? To the employer, to the recruiter, to the hiring manager. So first they're trying to figure out, how do I weave my way in this 9 to 5 area? The second phase that people typically go through, because as a multi-passionate, you're going to want to explore all the things, is what does a side hustle look like for me? Because now I maybe, have done my route within 9 to 5. I'm feeling like I want to express myself a little bit more. I want to explore more passions. And so you're starting to explore that side hustle idea of, maybe I want to, do things on my own, be in charge of that. And then eventually I see so many of my clients who started off with me working in, corporate, branch off into creating their freelance business because they realize that as a free spirit, they want to do what they want to do. They're eventually, empowered enough to feel like they can take on becoming an entrepreneur or a solopreneur. And so they go through this, it's these 3 stages that I sense from people. And so I try to really meet people where they are depending on the stage that they're in, the phase. So within that 9 to 5 section, what we typically work on is brainstorming all these different ideas of what are the different sectors that you want to do. And we start off by really starting to mesh and combine multiple passions together and say, okay, well, what are the unique jobs that would, combine 2 or 3 things here? And what are the different paths that we can create? So we'll start literally listing out all of these different things, creating them together, and then seeing, what would be most interesting for you to try. And I really set them up with a foundation to say, anytime you want to change, you want to move jobs, you want to move industries, you want to, just essentially switch and transition, do you have the foundation in that job search skill set, and also in articulating your story, regardless of what you want, so that you can constantly pivot and change in the way that is flowing, right, with what you may be interested in at the time.
So these, I oftentimes get a question from folks who are like, is it better to be a generalist or a specialist? And I find that question, I mean, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, but I find it's not such a binary. It's like, it depends. It depends where you're applying, what you want, what your goals are, and also how you tell that story ultimately. What would be your response to that question? And then I'd love to get into somebody who is looking to, and then how do you tell the story ultimately? If how do we make it look like you're not being flaky when you're still kind of in that experimental phase in your career?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in terms of being a generalist or a specialist, honestly, it's really up to the person. Whatever is calling to you, whether you want to dive deep into, a specialty, an industry, an area, or you find yourself being called in multiple directions, that's really up to you. Like there shouldn't be someone else claiming what is best for you. That's how I feel in your career. So truly it's up to each individual person. And maybe you want to be a specialist for a time and then you want to be a generalist in something completely different, right? And then you have a unique perspective that someone else doesn't have, because often when you're in one unique area of expertise, you're thought to think in a certain way. So anytime you start to add a different industry, a different skill that's really outside of that area, you start to create a unique perspective that other people in that area may not have. And so that's what I think is really powerful about being able to learn different skills, learn different industries, and transition, and have a different mindset and perspective that you bring to the table. Now, when it comes to starting off in that experimentation phase, what I typically do with my clients is we create this master resume doc, is what I really like to call it. And so it's where we're going to put all of your accomplishments, all of your, all of your experiences that you've ever had, because a resume, typically is only 1 to 2 pages. You're going to have to personalize it to every job. So this is for you. It's a bank where you're going to keep all of your experiences, and we break down each section into what you've done in each position. So, oh no, sorry. It broke up for a second. You froze.
Oh, you're still good. No, might
Oh,
just be,
okay.
it's just my Botox.
It's
It's just the Botox.
yeah. So essentially, from that bank, you look at one position. What people will typically tell me is you do more than what's in your job description. So let's just say in one position, you did some marketing, you did some sales, you did social media, you did PR, whatever was asked of you. So we separate that one job description into these three sections where there are going to be bullet points specifically for social media, bullet points specifically for marketing, bullet points specifically for sales. And once we have that bank, that's how we start to personalize the resumes and articulate your stories. So we're only going to pull the ones that are personalized to the job. And the way that it's essentially, what people teach, how to land a job, how to find your next job, and how to articulate your story. But what we're doing is we're not going to limit you to applying to one industry, one area. We're just going to make sure that we're pulling from this story bank and we are personalizing it to each one. So we don't need to tell people what they aren't interested in knowing. They just want to know, are you, interested in the job? Let's share the experiences and the stories that, connect with there. And then you do the same thing for another one. But it's just making sure you can mix and match to the way that you want to and craft the right story for the right person, the right audience, essentially.
I think that's great. When you're at the phase where you are ready to start applying for jobs, do you have recommendations for where people can look? Because you kind of don't know what you don't know, right? Like if you're not exposed to, let's say, I'm thinking about my own career, I began in development, which was a fancy way of saying fundraising.
Mhm.
Uh, and I wouldn't have known what that was if I hadn't had my mom tell me about it. I didn't learn that in school or meet anybody. She said development, and I had done a lot of fundraising. And so I always think about, if you don't have exposure, how do you know where to look and how do you expand your horizons for what opportunities are out there? So for somebody who is multi-passionate, who maybe needs to be thinking about their career in a little bit of more creative way, where would you recommend that they, the next steps after they've kind of like harnessed their story, but where do you tell that story now?
Mm-hmm. So I definitely say it would start off with your own brainstorming process. And I typically take my clients through a mind mapping process where we're looking at all the areas that they're interested in. Then they'll circle what are the most exciting ones within that mind map, and then we'll start to combine it, like I mentioned earlier. Like, let's just say they circled social media, they circled health, they circled sustainability, right? So you could be maybe a social media manager at a sustainability tech company. You could be, maybe you're in health. What are you? Are you a social media consultant? Maybe like for nutritionists. Are you, working with um, are you working with hospitals? Are you, like, what are the different things essentially that you can put together within these areas um, that match the most exciting ones on that mind map? So firstly, it's what can you invent in your head? Most often than not, you're going to come up with ideas for a few jobs that you weren't thinking of prior. And then secondly, as you have the ideas, then I really take people through this process of understanding, like, what is your sole purpose? What is your higher purpose here? um, and they go through this really like worksheet of reflection questions where we try to narrow down, what's your mission, at least at this current stage in life. It's not going to be for the rest of your life. Again, you can constantly change and evolve, but what's that personal mission for you? And that's going to be the guiding light of where we take, the jobs that you want to search for. Because, does the company or does the position align with what you really want to do, in terms of, that coming from a higher place of what you really want to make an impact in the world. And then combining that with, okay, I know I want to make this impact and I know that I'm interested in doing X, Y, and Z. What are my options, right? And so that's going to start your scavenger hunt eventually of what are the companies that match this? What are the positions look like? And so it gives you a little bit of a compass in starting to look for and ask questions.
I love that. Do you have any examples of clients you've worked with, or or your own story of where you've really been able to chart the journey from feeling lost or overwhelmed or confused to honing in on that compass and then taking the next steps?
Mm. So actually, I just was working with a client, and I do this regardless of what phase they're in. So
Mhm.
even when they're going into freelancing, we think about like, what's that mission? What's that higher purpose that you want to make? And so the a similar way that we charted out for her is, again, what are you interested in doing? What are the skills that you have? And then what's the life that you want to create? And then we go through, again, just questions of to bring up anything, um, maybe that you have forgotten about, like maybe what were things that you were interested in when you were younger that you let go? What are things that make you really angry about the world, or what makes you want to be able to have a conversation with someone for hours, right? Like what are the things that come up for you in these areas, or what's something that you can work on for hours and hours and forget to go pee? you know, um, we bring in all of these different questions, and then we start to pour that together as a brand. So the example that I typically give my clients are, like Chobani, or a couple of companies that have their mission statements, so they can start to see themselves as a brand. And what you'll notice about companies when they have mission statements is that they're not niche or I help statements,
Okay.
right? They're not specific in the sense of, for example, like, I help entrepreneurs scale to 500,000 a year, right? Like, that's typically what they'll tell you to do in business. Your higher purpose is going to be something that leads you in a direction, but is open enough to explore opportunities. So I think, what was Chobani's? Chobani's was something along the terms of health, but it's not like it's just like specific to yogurt, right? Like it gives this broad description of where are we going in the vision,
Mhm.
and they get to dictate and decide where they go with that vision, and it can go multiple ways. So that's really how I help clients chart this. Is when you start with that mission statement, it's really just a guiding light, but it's not going to dictate you have to do it in this way.
Right.
So maybe an example of mine previously, it was really just focused on helping people who were underrepresented, really become empowered in their careers. And I faced it a little bit differently than I now, because like I said, we all transition and evolve. And so the way that I was able to do that was through recruitment, was through HR, was through, working in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And there were so many different ways where I was able to empower employees, support them in their careers, work with people within underrepresented communities. But it wasn't sticking me to one area, right? It allowed me to play and still continue to feel like I was making an impact in what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I love that. Take me back, if you don't mind, to your career. I saw that you put on your website that I think there was a time you said, while some saw my thirst for growth and passion for life as admirable and exciting, others couldn't understand why I wasn't happy with my career. Yeah, the influence of other people, right? And
Mm.
even like tactically, if you are finding yourself kind of evolving away from your community, whether they all are doctors and lawyers, or that's not the path you want to follow, but just kind of the emotional difficulty of recognizing that you may be different. And then how do you actually start to communicate that to folks who maybe don't understand your choice?
Hmm. Well, I think there's one area where you have to understand that not everyone is going to understand.
Mhm.
And so it's really not about constantly explaining yourself to people that are committed to thinking in a different way. I would say when it comes to articulating your story, there's really a focus on your ambitions within your career. So when you're articulating your story, it's going to be to companies, to recruiters, to hiring managers, to potential clients if you're starting a business, to your brand on LinkedIn, all of those things. That's where you really want to focus on telling your story when you're creating those connections, collaborations, etc. Um, when you're, more so in the outside world and you're talking to people around you who may not understand, I think there's just a confidence with, this is my decision and this is what I do. And there shouldn't be a need to try to explain yourself if you don't want to. So I mean, that's my take on speaking to people again who may not get it.
Mhm.
Um, you know, that being said, I also like to teach what I call the multi-passionate mindset. And so that's really an internal thing within you, and understanding that everything that you have done in your life, whether it's your own, personal experience, whether it's professional experience, and all of the areas that you've been able to touch, that's what makes you really unique and rare. And that's what makes you have different perspectives that other people may not have. And that's what makes you have ideas that other people may not come up with, especially, with companies that often hire the same type of people or the same type of mindset or the same type of background. You have something that nobody else has. And so bringing that to any company, bringing that to any business that you want to create, that's really what your superpower is. And that superpower actually rarely comes from deep expertise in one area. Sorry to break it to all the specialists out there, but yeah, thinking differently is taught from learning other modalities, from learning other industries, from learning other skills that aren't related to what you were doing prior, right? So even, what I was learning in art as an art student, that I'm able to bring it into a coaching business, right? That has nothing to do, they have nothing to do with each other, but I have a different perspective, and that's why my clients come to me. So I think it's really in owning the fact that you're multi-passionate and you're fluid, and that's how you want to live your career, but you don't have to explain yourself to everyone.
I love that. I know that you also help people, I think, start businesses, right?
Mhm.
They come to you and they say, I don't know what kind of business I want. Like, how do I combine my skills and, apply it towards a business? Or do oftentimes people come to you, they do have the idea for the business, but they're just not sure how to get started. Yeah. If you could talk a little bit about your coaching practice as it relates to businesses and freelancers, that would be great.
Yeah, so it's both, actually. Some people will come to me saying, I have no idea what I want to do, but I know that my current career is just not working for me. And I
Mhm.
know that I am a free spirit and I need to move into this freelance direction. Other people will come in and they'll say, I do have an idea of what I want to do, but I don't know how to get started. This process is just overwhelming. I'm lost. It's confusing. I don't know where to start. So I definitely get a combination. But what I also notice is that even people who come in believing that they know what they want to do don't always come out with the same idea when we're done coaching.
Mm.
Because regardless, if you think you have your idea down, I'm still going to make you go through that brainstorming process. I'm still going to make you think about what are the different possibilities for you, and what are the different paths that we could take, and what's, again, that higher mission, that higher purpose. Because what will also happen is sometimes people come to me wanting to create a business based on the skills that they already have, because
Mhm.
that's what you're taught. It's what skills do you have that are monetizable, and what can you monetize, versus I take a second, I ask them, is that really what you want to do, or is that just how you think you can make money?
Mm.
And that's your blocker, right? Is believing that you can only make money based off of these monetized skills. And instead I say, well, screw all of that. What do you really want to do? And let's make it happen, and let's make money. Right? Based off of what you want to do, because anything you don't know, you can learn, right? And everything that you already have and you're excited about, and you want to put together, that's what's going to draw people in. That's what's going to make a successful business. That's what's going to remind you to keep going when you're having challenges. So yeah, I definitely, I will take everyone through this process, regardless of whether you think you have your idea or not, because there's still so much to be gained from going through that brainstorming process and figuring out that impact that you want to make.
So good, so good. So, a question I'm asking everybody, all the coaches that are coming onto my lives. I'm kind of obsessed with the theme of self advocacy and learning to become your own biggest champion
Mhm.
in work, life, and money. And that, of course, can look different at different stages of your life. It can be expressed in lots of different ways. for you and your own journey and in the work that you do with folks, what would you define as kind of the fundamentals of becoming your own biggest champion in work, life, money?
Mm. I think the biggest fundamental for me would be understanding that you can go after your dreams now with the experience that you have, and you don't have to go out and gain more experience or, take a stepping stone and elongate time to stop yourself from doing what it is that you're passionate about. So what I teach, truly what I teach, and everyone that comes into, my coaching programs, my courses, it's how can you utilize the story you already have, the experience that you already have, and start selling yourself today, tomorrow, not thinking about, oh, I want to be, a manager in this, but I know that I need X, Y, and Z before I can get there. So I'm going to take this job that it pays me less, and maybe it's entry level, and it's just going to teach me, something before I can go into that space. And so I'm constantly telling people, this doesn't excite you. So why are you doing it? If it's not exciting, and I, base it on my experiences as well, where I remember I was even in college, I was applying for a certain like management positions. I got called back for people for descriptions that said they had 7+ years of experience to do this job. And it's just because I have the audacity to apply and say that I'm the right person for it, right? Yeah. So it's your confidence, and it's how you sell yourself, and it's articulating what you already have. Like, stop searching for more. You already have it. You just need to see it and appreciate it. And so that, I say, would be the biggest fundamental to being your champion, is knowing that you can take action now. You can chase those dreams now. You don't have to wait for it.
How do people work with you? Ladies, get paid. How do we pay you? So yes, give all of your channels so people can follow you, participate in the amazing offerings that you have.
Yes. So I do have my website, which is cynthiaorduña.com. And then on Instagram, again, it's really simple. It's just my name, at cynthiaorduña.co. And then I also have a free masterclass that people will see both on my website and on my Instagram, which is how to manifest your dream job, because I'm all about manifesting those big dreams that you have and doing less, but getting more.
Yeah. In the last minute that we have, any final words of wisdom that you'd like to share for folks?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. I don't know if I have any more wisdom.
That was all pretty wise. I mean, I feel like we should get into, maybe in another session, actually, like, have you work with somebody, just to really show folks like what the process is. But yeah, I mean, maybe just even for yourself and your own journey, what's next for you? Yeah. And like, is there a challenge that you're having right now that, for people who are watching this or listening to it, they could help you with?
Well, I think maybe my last word of wisdom is, what I also focus on in all of my programs is creating a career around your life, not creating a life around your career. Because that's how we end up getting stuck in this rat race of working long hours. And, regardless of what it is, whether you're freelancing, whether you're working 9 to 5, you're constantly trying to see, where does my life fit in the little pieces of time that I have. And instead, when I work with my clients, it's about saying, what is the life that you desire? And then let's create a career that supports that lifestyle for you. We're never thinking about work first. We're thinking about the life, the dream, the self-care first. And then we're creating a career and generating money to support you in that, because women need to take control and be empowered to do so. So
this always happens at the end. Look at this. We got Nicole, we got Kim, we had Karen earlier. Yeah, Nicole said, so great. Stop searching for more. You already have it, which was your quote. She said, I question my skills so much, but that is forcing me to rethink how I present myself. And Kim, also for her, the quote she found resonant was, creating a career around your life, not your life around your career. That hits so good. So good. Well, thank you all very much for being here. And particularly to you, Cynthia, really appreciate your time. And excited to see what comes next. And hopefully we can continue to provide content like this for for everybody who is searching for a way to, again, create a career around your life,
Yes.
not the other way around.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, everybody. Now go get paid.